What's up, Owen? It's Miles from Arizona. I actually have another question about Dominionism. Would you call Dominionism a cult? You've talked about it before, and frankly, have talked about how incredibly dangerous it is, believe me, it is. So, would you say it's a cult? And if so, would you consider it the most dangerous cult in the world? Full stop, regardless of whether it's a mainstream cult or I guess an apocalypse doomsday cult like Jehovah's Witness, because yeah, they are dangerous. I would consider them personally a cult, and I think that they are the most dangerous thing in the world today, or at least in America today. But what are your thoughts? Thank you.
Really interesting question. Let me give you my take on this. Okay, so there's something called the, oh my God, what's the word for it? I'm suddenly forgetting it. Overton Window. Yeah, there's something called the Overton Window. Okay, and the Overton Window is basically the window of acceptable public discourse, right? At one point in American history, it was unacceptable to discuss black people voting, right? It was an outrageous idea. It was ridiculous. Nobody would take you seriously if you brought this shit up. But now that is within the Overton window, the window of reasonable discussion. And what's outside of the window is discussing taking those rights away. Generally speaking, I mean, obviously the Republican Party has been desperately trying to take black voters' rights away this whole time, but saying it out in the open publicly, I think black people shouldn't be voting. That's not really an acceptable position to hold in society today, right? Let me link that back to cults for you. Cults vary in how dangerous they are. The more dangerous and destructive and vindictive and evil a cult is, generally speaking, the fewer members they bring in. The fewer people will fall for their propaganda and their recruiting efforts, because you got to bring people pretty fucking far to bring them into Scientology. You've got to move them over, get their view of acceptable public discourse. You got to move their Overton window all the way over here to get them to a point where they're willing to accept some of the ideas that Scientology presents, for example, right? So the more extreme a cult is, the harder it is to recruit people into it, generally speaking. But here's the catch with Dominionism. Dominionism is so mainstream at this point. They've brought in so many people, and they have lobbied so many politicians to push these ideas. They have moved the Overton window, the window of acceptable public political discourse, they've moved that closer to where they are. The difference between Scientology and Dominionism is they have made their ideas more acceptable in the mainstream. That's what the Republican Party really is following, is these extreme ideas of Dominionism. That's what they're chasing. And that is largely the result of people like Jerry Falwell Sr. and Billy Graham and all those other old televangelists doing their best to integrate politics and religion together seamlessly. So Dominionism is a really unique case where it's basically an extreme doomsday cult that holds mainstream ideas. That is one of the most dangerous things about it. So your question was, is Dominionism a cult? I would say yes. Your second question was, is Dominionism one of the most dangerous cults? And my response is yes, not necessarily because they have the most extreme beliefs, because there are more extreme beliefs out there. And more dangerous beliefs. Like, look at Heaven's Gate, for example. It's one of the most extreme, radical, out there belief systems that there are. I would say Heaven's Gate was a lot more radical and bizarre than Dominionism is. But there were fewer of them because it was so extreme. It was hard to bring in new members. So Dominionism, I would say, is one of the most dangerous in the U.S. at the very least. I'd say it's the most dangerous in the U.S. because they have normalized very, very radical, extreme beliefs, made them mainstream, and brought in a lot of members as a result.